It's part 9 of the Nanman campaign Abridged, where in the previous part we held off an invasion from Sun Ce and managed to end the war very quickly. However, we then went to war with an even bigger superpower perhaps, the Duchy of Song, through Liu Bei. I wanted to attack some of Liu Bei's territory, but he got vassalized, so we ended up at war with half of the map. We've made some advances, and now we've actually managed to ambush Liu Bei's main force as it comes to attack us. In this case, it's another slanted ambush map, so I'm not going to really surround the enemy very much, just going to charge down the hill, not based on any knowledge of this being a better way to do it. I just feel more comfortable going for this option. As you can see, we have quite a few elephants to employ, and they do a nice early charge, which in particular in the enemy center does big damage. Tons of things like archers and sword infantry, nice and weak against being run over. Looks like our archers are doing some very dangerous friendly fire shots there, but we're not microing to that degree, especially in an ambush when this is all happening so fast. The middle of the enemy army is already dead. They're dead at high strength though. That means they've effectively defeated us as well, because we'll have to chase them to the edge of the map to stop them coming back. So everything's just leaving. But now there is a fight going on at the head of the column. This one's a bit more deadly for us. As you can see right here, enemy hero Zhang Fei is easily able to best our heroes, doing extreme damage. So we need to try and avoid doing any hero-on-hero combat with him in particular. You can see I'm drawing everything I can up towards the front of the column, leaving just a few units to chase enemy routers and some guys here to distract Guan Yu. They're just going to die. Keeping him away from the main fight is useful in this case. Now then, we charge in against what remains of the enemy's army, just a few spear units and some good cav as well, the sword guard cav who are particularly powerful. Meanwhile, Zhang Fei is going to be distracted similarly to Guan Yu. I'm just going to leave him here, killing all of my slingers, and that's good, because while he's there doing that, we are sneakily focusing down Liu Bei. Liu Bei is the weakest of the three, and is the enemy's faction leader of course, so taking him out should reduce the enemy's morale, suffice to say. Off in the distance, it looks like some of the enemy units are now leaving the map, so we'll have some stuff freed up that can come back into the fight as a result. And here Liu Bei's in real trouble. We've got 2 heroes and our elephants on him. A nasty situation. I think he might rout at the last second here, but he does not manage to escape. An elephant takes him downtown. So there we go, the enemy's morale should be reduced. However, the problem of Guan Yu and Zhang Fei gets worse, because now they have the Fallen Oathsworn buff, which doubles their attack I believe, and their attack was already extremely high. That said though, they're going to be overkilling our troops. Like if they're doing 5,000 damage per attack against our foot soldiers who only have 100 health, most of that damage doesn't do anything, so it might not be so bad while they're just fighting infantry. You can see I'm trying to reform near Zhang Fei. Some of their sword guard cav came back from routing here, and they were able to engage my slingers, who had also come back from routing after Zhang Fei killed them. Unfortunately, when something stops routing, they keep facing away from the battle, so we don't get some sling attacks here. My micro wasn't fast enough to turn them round or to notice this happening. So unfortunately, 2 sling units get charged by the sword guard cav, and that's going to be a very unfavourable matchup for us. The only response I have is to send in one of my heroes. That's pretty much going to have to do, because everything else is going to be busy just kind of looking at Zhang Fei for now. I'm worried that Zhang Fei will kill Mu Lu, so everything needs to act as a sacrifice in case he gets close. He's currently fighting my Nanzhong champions, some good infantry, and they're able to actually push back the enemy cav when they attack, but as for Zhang Fei, they won't be able to do all that much. Guan Yu and some sword guard cav are killing some guys up here on the hill. Well, that's to be expected. This is still just a delay or a sacrifice. But this ends up being pivotal for some reason, because after he's done killing those guys, he just sits there with the sword guard cav. That's very useful. So this distraction technique seems to be working from beyond the grave. He's not coming down to help out Zhang Fei. This means we can commit all of our remaining army against Zhang Fei and try to bring him down. I surrounded him from a couple of sides, started attacking with the elephants who have a ranged attack, and with some archers on the other side. Looks like they're struggling to actually fire, but in theory those archers were shooting at him. We've also got some enemy cav, the ones who were near Guan Yu, who came down to actually help out, leaving Guan Yu behind. Again, I'm just sort of distracting them with those ravine infantry who are trash. Guan Yu though, not moving, not paying any attention, and that's going to be critical. It turns out that defeating Zhang Fei was easier than expected, because while he's buffed and stuff, he actually routs at really high health. His morale was very low, it turns out. Off he goes then, our army doesn't take massive damage having to grind him down like I thought. And we're also going to have an easy time against Guan Yu, simply because the game's glitching out. So you can see me here setting up near Guan Yu on the hill. We've got our elephant slingers attacking. I didn't realise, but elephants, or the lesser elephant variety, has a ranged attack. It's just turned off by default, so I hadn't noticed so far. But if you put them on fire at will, they do attack like slingers. As for Guan Yu, he's taking attacks from those slingers, our foot slingers, and some archers. So far, doesn't really mind. The question is gradually becoming, do I have enough ammunition to kill this guy while the exploit's still going, or will I have to go in for a melee attack, which would be much more dangerous? As it happened, the glitch ended after a while. We took off like half his health, and then he charged in to attack us. First he hits the elephants. The elephants should be able to do big damage to him, but he can do that straight back. Here, his overkill is going to be less wasted. He kills 2 elephants immediately with 1 slash. Then luckily he actually moves on to attack a less valuable unit. I think that was a good choice from Guan Yu, from our perspective anyway. He probably should have rode down the line just killing all the elephants. For now then, we're just going to chip away at his health with all of our trash, and I'm going to have Mulu attacking as well, since he's a legendary lord, legendary hero, whatever they're called in this game. He should be doing greater than average damage, and long story short, we do manage to take him down after a while and a bunch more casualties. So here's the final result. We lost about half what the enemy lost, good stuff, and we weren't completely destroyed by Guan Yu and Zhang Fei, which is what I thought might happen, and in both cases it seems like we defeated them under unusual circumstances, but I will take that, that's just what we needed. The worry though is that the 2 Duchy of Song armies that are nearby would attack me in the same turn while I'm in my weakened state, but they don't. And now we'll have a turn of replenishment that will take us back to roughly full strength. First though, we need to look at an attack at Kui Pass. I have 2 stacks now prepared to take down the stack that took it from me last time. That's going to be easy enough. Spent ages trying to work out if I should spare this guy. I ended up actually executing him, going against my usual recruit all the prisoners plan, because he had a special armor item he dropped if we killed him, and we actually don't have any special Chinese style armor, which I guess is better than our armor, I'm not sure. So nice to collect a few pieces. Anyway, with that done, we'll move on from the Kui Pass, and these armies can come to help out with the Liubei Duchy of Song situation. As for Mulu, figured might as well just move him backwards a bit and then go into hiding again, since if we do get attacked, we'll now be in range of the town garrison. And of course we have Shamuka, who is back from his recent death in an auto-resolve. His army's been rebuilt very quickly and can sail forwards to the front lines once again. We're also at war with Ma Teng off in the west. I had one of his cities under siege, not much has happened, so I just auto-resolved it and that was fine, and now we have the city. This gives us a pretty steadfast front line against Ma Teng, so we've got the walled city and the pass, both of which are sort of easy to defend maps. From here we can actually go in the other direction and attack some of Liu Bei's territory, which is pretty tempting. Here's Liu Bei's turn. Firstly, his main force doesn't run away, it's still half dead, but it's coming on the offensive, perhaps because the AI was aware that the Duchy of Song is coming in as well. However, no fights, they just queue up outside the settlement, or just in front of Mulu's ambush, I guess, they probably saw him. So, we're going to go and just set up for a standard settlement defense. Mulu goes inside, and Shamuka will just sit next to the settlement. I realise I don't need to be in forced march to do this. Unfortunately, once you start forced marching, you can't stop, so the debuff has been applied. That means our guys will be inferior in battle for this turn. This third army is going to force march through this forest. It's taking the difficult way to get to the front line, these guys. Not quite sure why we're doing this. There's a no road land option, and there's a much faster one-turn river option, which I could have also done with the other army, but I didn't for some reason, so there we are. At least we've got all the bases covered this way. So yes, we're gradually building up a 4-stack attack here, pretty powerful. With the Ma Teng situation, what I'm going to do is leave behind a general and recruit some stuff, so that this city I just captured is somewhat defensible, allowing the main force to go east and look into these potentially unguarded Liu Bei territories. I'm presuming they're unguarded, since Liu Bei is attacking us somewhere else, he might have committed to that. So we'll just go in there and see what happens. Here is the Liu Bei turn. A new army comes up towards us from the south along the river, so need to pay attention to those guys. Their main force does not continue advancing, it appears to be moving to link up with their reinforcements. That leaves the two Duchy of Song armies nearby, and they do go for an attack. They're actually attacking Shamaka rather than the settlement. In this case, they could have done the classic siege cancel exploit thing if the second stack had surrounded the settlement first. Then we wouldn't have been able to use 1.5 of our armies in this battle, but they have missed out on that key exploit. So instead it's going to be a dead even, all versus all #massive battle. The first thing we need to deal with here are the deployment zones. We're on the west part of the map to start with, but our reinforcements are coming in on the east side next to the enemy's reinforcements and next to the enemy deployment zone. So first things first, we're going to rush everything towards the south part of the map to meet up before any of these nearby units get any ideas and attack us. Luckily enough, the first army was kind of waiting for the second army to show up, so not much happened, and I was able to form up our grand army, our combined line, here on some not particularly good terrain in the south part of the map. We've got this really messy formation where I just sort of tried to select all of the ranged units and put them into one group, and then all the melee units and put them in another group. Looks like I failed because those tigers are technically a ranged unit, but a very basic formation. Because of the fact we have so many units that actually microing them properly is going to be pretty much impossible. As for the enemy army, they make a very messy attack, just sending in some stuff in dribs and drabs. First, these Cav make a nice attack against us. I thought we had them there because we gave them the -500 charge bonus using our slings. But maybe their charge bonus is greater than 500 because they still kill a bunch of us as they charge on in. They do a bit of a switcheroo and get some spears in against their Cav there. But you can see the spears are on the verge of routing at full strength, so yes, those really aren't our best troops. Luckily they don't rout in that case. The enemy have plenty of their own spears. They have loads of good spears. The warriors of Ye and defenders of Henan or something. Hebei, I think it was. Some heavy spear unit variants that are better than the usual G line of units. So that's inconvenient, but all of their bonuses against Cav are going to be wasted fighting our frontline infantry. They do send a load of Cav around our left. Mulu and the elephants intercept most of them, but some of them do get a rear attack on my foot soldiers. Very nasty. So now these melee fights are going to be probably in the enemy's favour. It's time for us to start doing some antics with our elephants and stuff to get around this. All along the line it looks like we're engaged. Obviously the micro's out of control, so all of the matchups aren't going to be ideal. We're going to have spears fighting infantry and swords fighting Cav, that sort of thing. Here I've tried to break through with some elephants, but an enemy officer is holding them in check. We've got a nice distraction unit running out around the back of the enemy, but annoyingly only Cav went after them, and those Cav will be good against those axes. What we want is the enemy to break off with their melee units and start chasing me away. We're gradually sorting out the enemy's Cav attack on our left, courtesy of the spear guards, who are going to be nice and good against the enemy's also good sword guard Cav. The left melee flank is holding on. Our slinger line isn't doing much because they were actually out of range. It was only at this point of the battle you can see me shuffling them forwards after I noticed this going on. At the same time they've got a commander who's broken through to attack the slings, but the tigers have also been released, so she'll have to deal with them at the same time. Our hero elephants are now getting to work. These are going to be our key weapons as usual, since they can reduce enemy morale and get plenty of kills. And we're also going to want to dispatch some units to do this. The enemy have plenty of bows and crossbows. We can effectively take them out of the fight at this stage by sneaking a few guys through to just skirmish the enemy towards the edge of the map. Now we make some good progress in the centre because Le Chin and some of the other elephants are able to make a big breakthrough, smashing open a pocket of enemy infantry, and the commander the enemy sent behind our centre does get taken down by the slings and tigers, so that should give a morale debuff. I think that officer was one of the overall leaders of one of the two stacks we're fighting. On the right things are very messy, both sides taking enormous casualties, but since we have a freed up centre we can commit a bit more to help out with that fight. And also I'm getting better at using the slings at this later stage in the fight. They weren't doing very much, but now I've got them targeted onto key blobs of enemy infantry, and the way the enemy are sort of on a hillside makes it really easy for us to hit them all the time with sling attacks, keeping them constantly debuffed and constantly losing health. I've done a decent enough job at clearing out the enemy ranged units, either routing them or getting them to just skirmish away. Looks like this enemy officer over here, combined with these axe infantry, almost took down Sai, but the enemy officer routed, and then I noticed this happening and got Sai out of there just before he died, so that was a close call. Elsewhere, our elephants are starting to do the job, really. You can see here an enemy blob has been gradually destroyed, probably by those elephants and not by our infantry, and those elephants will now fold in to start attacking other things, clearing up more and more stuff, and the trumpet ability comes into play a lot now, because once the enemy morale is a bit low, we can pop trumpets to cause them to just rout. We break off a couple of enemy units right there, doing just that. Unfortunately, we did lose a hero somewhere in the middle. That hero was Mulu's wife, so he goes into a powered up and berserk state. Not going to be that useful to us, because he's just chasing away units. He's not going to do much with that. If he'd been near the enemy hero, he might have been able to grab a kill. At this stage though, I'm not too worried about that. I just want to finish the battle off. We're winning, but we need to concentrate our forces over here. We're going to bring the elephants into the enemy's final blob. The slings are already doing good work, keeping everything debuffed, keeping everything gradually dying, and keeping their morale low, because being under missile fire does reduce morale in general. That means that when the trumpets start getting blasted out, the enemy's morale is going to go off the rails, and Shemika is able to achieve a huge rout without even really engaging this blob. That's pretty much the end of this battle. The level of routing stuff brings it into a total army losses rout. And at this stage we've got a lot of chasing to do. We have enough units left alive that we can get some more kills out of this. Plenty of things are trying to escape. We run to the edge of the map and we're going to skip over that as usual. Here is the result. We lost about half of our army. It was a pretty deadly fight for us, but the enemy lost like 3/4 of their army. I executed Xiangyang, one of the lesser known legendary characters, and released Lady Liu there. And the thing about this entire battle is that while it did go quite badly for us overall, we're in our territory, and you know what that means. We're going to get replenishment after this fight. Actually, Shamuka isn't, because he's in forced march stance, annoyingly, but Mulu's army will bounce back to high strength. And more importantly, the enemy armies are stuck there, nearly dead, so we're going to have a chance to go and attack them again and make this win count for a little bit more, and perhaps clear a path forwards to go and take Xiangyang. However, in the light of our recent progress, you know what Wu Tugu wants to do. He, for some reason, is being attacked by Huangzu, despite him being very far away from Wu Tugu. Huangzu happens to be a vassal of Yuan, so by accepting this war, accepting to keep Wu Tugu as my vassal, we are put into war with Yuan, and as you can see, he's right there on the right side of the screen in the area where we're currently fighting, thus making the strategic situation much worse again. Thank you, Wu Tugu. He is really keeping it up as the #1 saboteur of this campaign. At least for now, as mentioned, we can pick up some easy victories by now advancing and attacking the survivors of the big battle. So Mulu and Shemka combined here easily takes down that somewhat substantial force. They're still alive after the fight, so we have to kill them again. Just going to use Mulu on his own for this one. That will work out just fine. There was another force that ran away, of course, but I'm not actually going to go after them in this case, because I'd have to use Shamuka and his army is somewhat damaged. I'm going to leave his army behind. There is also this threat that I noticed after pursuing that enemy army. It gave me line of sight on Xiangyang, and we can see there are actually 3 more fresh armies on the way in. So while we've taken down the first 3 armies really that came in, there are 3 more still coming, and there's a 4th coming up from the south in the form of Yuan, one of the other legendary characters. In this case, while I considered going out into the river to auto-resolve Yuan, since we had a balanced power advantage against him, it's perhaps more important to go and do this. We'll just finish off the main Liu Bei army, since that's an easy win for us. And we actually get kind of lucky here. We capture Liu Bei himself. This means we have the opportunity to execute him, and while this doesn't really matter, it feels like a victory. Obviously he'll just be replaced by someone else in the game, but any advantages he was giving his army will go away. He is a good leader, so getting rid of him will damage the enemy, and their morale will surely be reduced in a narrative sense that doesn't apply. So that's that. We're going to have to commit at least one of these 4 armies to fight Yuan at some point, but for now we're just going to continue gathering up, and we'll keep an eye on what all of those other forces are doing. In particular, as mentioned, Xiangyang isn't going to advance at all or really do anything. Because he missed out on a turn of replenishment, I want to grab that now and also respawn the units that were lost in that previous fight. Going back over to the west, my attack is succeeding because indeed the territories I hoped would be unguarded are unguarded, or at least this first one is, and we get an easy auto-resolve and move on in, so putting more pressure on Liu Bei, or not Liu Bei I guess it is because he's dead, that faction, and of course advancing towards our victory condition, which is to have 50 regions, something like that. With the Yuan Shu thing, we managed to get out of it pretty much as soon as it started, because it turned out Yuan Shu really wanted peace, so much so that I can take all his money and still have some negotiation room left. I actually couldn't really get enough from him, but we're going to take this deal because having those nearby regions not be hostile would really help, because we'd probably face like 3 or 4 more armies if Yuan Shu also piled in on this fight. So at least this way, things are roughly even in terms of numbers here on the front line. Now then, it's time for the enemy's turn. The Liu Bei remnants move up to attack King Mulu here. We will just retreat from this. Since we have so many armies, there's no reason to accept any kind of single stacked battle. We want to group up and attack in groups, so we'll just ignore them and they don't press any engagements. We see Wei Yan taking out Wu Tugu, I believe that was, and then sailing on right past the front line. That's very annoying because someone's now going to have to leave the front line and start pursuing him, and in the meantime he might be able to take some territory as well. That's pretty dangerous. Elsewise we just see forces moving about. There's a nice build-up going on here. So it's going to be 3 of our armies realistically against the stuff we see in this group. We'll have to try and maneuver here to get an advantage. We certainly want to try and avoid fighting everything at the same time, which we'd have to do if we attacked them right now. Well, we'll see. We'll leave this part here. It kind of felt like we made some progress in this part, but maybe we didn't, because the enemy actually had a lot more troops than us, so our victories have just got us to an even point, and now we need to achieve what we achieved in this episode again in order to get the advantage I thought we already had, and perhaps then we'll be able to make some progress. One last thing I'll mention is that we were able to unlock the end of the military tech tree. You had to have 2 elephants in Shamaka's army or something to unlock it. Some pretty easy mission. And this final tech down in the middle is really good. There's one that gives you like 10% cheaper upkeep, a bunch of extra campaign movement range, and increased replenishment by like 15%, a massive replenishment buff. So if we can hold out to get that, we'll get to the point when we have about 50% replenishment overall, and our armies will be effectively invincible as long as they never lose battles and can always end turns in our territory or having just conquered the enemy's territory, so they still get replenishment. We'll see anyway. We'll come back to this, as I said, at the start of the next part and try to unravel this whole strategic situation.